Hey, everybody. Welcome to my booth. Happy Thursday. I'm Jay. This is Andrew. It's an audition from ACX, a quick little audiobook thing. We're going to cover de-essing, a little bit of cleanup, as well as some setup things, and a little bit of performance for audiobook auditions. Before we jump in, if you'd like me to review your audio just like this, there's a form in the description. Send me something. If you want to jump the queue, right now it's about a 2 to 3 month waiting period, unfortunately. If you want to go towards the top and accelerate your feedback, you can check out the Booth Buddies down below. Supports this channel and gets you priority access to me in that fashion. And there's coaching on my website as well, if that's more your speed. Otherwise, thanks for being here. Thanks for clicking the buttons and all that jazz. All right, I'm going to stop and start through this and talk about some specific things that we can... I'll talk about technical stuff, stopping and starting, and then we'll do one full listen through to talk about performance stuff. Let's go.
Building meaningful connections. Strengthen emotional intelligence. Cultivate authentic relationships. Overcome loneliness. Thrive in life. Personally and professionally.
Cool. So in that first thing, love the calming tone, the dulcet tones. I feel very cared for already. So Andrew, starting off, the mic you're using, the Rode NT1, is a pretty bright microphone, and that can contribute to a couple of things in particular. One, it'll exacerbate mouth noise a lot, which was something that I struggled with when I was using the Rode NT1. Additionally, it can make you fairly sibilant. So if you have mouth noise naturally and you speak sibilantly, the Rode NT1 can exacerbate that sometimes. So there are a couple of things that you can do to address that. Firstly, you've got a fair amount of mouth noise going on. I would recommend just staying on top of the hydration and making sure that you're not eating dairy before you hop in. If you're feeling gummy or sticky or it sounds really clicky, just take a couple sips of water, get back to it. Some people like lemon peels or lemon in their water and find that helpful. Other folks have said chewing a little bit of gum before jumping in helps. That didn't help me, but some folks swear by it. But the thing that I swear by is iZotope's plugin. It's great. I have misophonia, so I'm really hypersensitive to mouth noise in general. And this plugin saved my butt. When I was starting out initially, I would manually clean every single click because I thought it was necessary. This thing, iZotope, it's great. So check it out. I have other videos talking about that specifically, but just to demonstrate, it'll show you how many clicks it's repairing right here. It's going to pick out stuff that's not necessarily a mouth click, but it'll give you a sense of
building meaningful connections. Strengthen emotional intelligence.
So it's really going to work just in that little period, but I'll do a quick A/B clicking it on and off as we go here.
Building meaningful connections.
And on.
Building meaningful connections. Strengthen emotional intelligence. Strengthen emotional intelligence.
So it just helps to clean it up quite a bit. And that just gives a little polish on particularly auditions, but I apply this to everything that I do just to make sure that all of my audio for people is crystal clear. Enough about that. That's fix 1. So fix 2, as I was saying, there's a fair amount of sibilance in here as well. There are a number of ways you can do it. One is if you have a de-esser. What a de-esser does is effectively compress or turn down the volume on a specific frequency range. So by virtue of it doing that to a specific range, i.e. where the S's live, it makes the Essing less sharp. It's a de-esser. Wow. So the way that I use that in this fashion, you can do it a couple ways. One, the easiest I think is to just click output sibilance only. So I would find an
meaningful connections. Strengthen emotion.
Meaningful connections. So if we highlight that, We can turn on this little loop-de-doop guy down here to make it just loop that section. This may be a little bit annoying to listen to at the moment, but if I click Output Sibilance Only,
Full connections. Full connections. Full connections.
so we hear the sh of connections, and we can see in this graph that it's peaking there. And we can also see in this gain reduction meter that it's dipping a little bit. I won't go into detail on how to set up a de-esser because that varies pretty heavily from person to person. But generally, you'll just find where the S's are happening, either looking at this, listening to an S, using your ears. Click the output sibilance. Oh my gosh, how dramatic. We were doing so well. I'm going to see if plugging this in helps. We'll just turn it back on. Yes, we have light. If that dies again, we're going to live with it. As I was saying, you find the thing and then you just reduce the threshold here so that you're not really cranking the S's down. The gain reduction should be just like barely peaking, and it should never really go past minus 6 dB for this particular de-esser. Another way you could do de-essing is with an EQ. So if we pull up my favorite type of EQ, this parametric equalizer, it may look slightly different depending on the program you're using, the DAW. But I'll just pick one of these bands for those who don't know what an EQ does. It either turns up the volume or down the volume or boosts or attenuates any different frequency in your recording. And you can think of this like a piano keyboard going from low notes to high notes, low, high. And I would do this the same way. I would turn up the volume here to really pull out the S's. I'm going to make this Q or width a little bit sharper so that it's not listening to a wide range. And then I'll just scrub this back and forth once I find those S's and hunt them out.
Full connections. Full connections. Full connections. Full connections.
So right here, I hear that sh sound a lot. So I'll dip that down to like minus 3 or 4. Let's go with minus 3. Widen this out a little bit.
Full connections. Full connections.
So that sh is now a little bit quieter. Similarly, for the S's true blue, we'll listen for that one.
Full connections. Full connections. Full connections. Full connections. Full connections.
So I hear him right about there. And we'll dip this guy down, widen that Q out a bit, and now we'll listen to this again.
Full connections. Full connections.
The downside of doing it like this is that it runs the risk of taming frequencies indefinitely rather than just when a sharp S or sh sound pops up. So for a bright microphone like the Rode NT1, this may be fine because it has such a lively upper frequency up here anyway. So you'll be just kind of taming specific treble frequencies. But there you go. Those are two options to help with that. I'm going to turn on the de-esser and the mouth declicker for the moment. Just let it ride. And what was the other thing I was going to say? Oh, in terms of your setup, you said you're using a cage with packing blankets over, and it sounds generally pretty good. I'd be curious to know what your total setup looks like in general. Reason being, there is still a little bit of reverb happening, meaning it's not enough for me to be like, ew, gross, that's a lot of reverb, but it's enough for me to think, hey, maybe we can improve upon it. And what I'm hearing is it sounds like your voice, the sound waves from it, are going through the blankets into the room beyond and then bouncing back a little bit. So my thought is if your cage, your booth, is not right up against a wall or is in a larger room, if you have the ability to put it into a smaller space just so that the sound waves aren't going through the packing blankets into space, bouncing around and then coming back, that may improve the reverb ever so slightly. But otherwise, your sound, I think, is pretty good. Okie dokie. Let's keep going.
When I began writing this...
Whoa. I've still got the Sibilance only clicked on. That's an important thing to remember. You want to, if any plugin, it has the option to like hunt a specific thing out. You want to be sure that you're turning it off before you ship it to people.
When I began writing this book, I kept circling back to the idea of connections. Not the quick, surface-level kind, but the deeper, more meaningful relationships that leave a lasting impact.
So this is something, you're doing a great job in reading it tonally in the way that I think it serves this material well, in that there's connections. We're talking about that. It's of the self-help, self-improvement genre, which lends itself to a calm, wise performance or reading in a lot of ways. The thing that I would encourage, and it's somewhat a razor's edge from where we are here, is
when I began writing this book, I kept circling back to the idea of connections. Not the quick, surface-level kind, but the deeper, more meaningful relationships that leave a lasting impact.
It's a really razor's edge, but as I listen to just this section here, there's a part of me that wants you to have actually written the book and to actually be thinking about the relationships that you're remembering, the meaningful relationships that you were considering as you wrote and penned the book. To be more specific, right now you're doing a wonderful job reading the page, but there's just like a subtle difference between, or distance between your heart, in my experience of it, and the words that you're saying. You are connected to them, but there isn't a depth of connection that I trust that you really lived it. And that's me being really hypercritical because you're so darn close to it. Because there are things where you'll listen to a book where an author's narrated it. Right now I'm thinking of The Power of Habit, I think it is. And that author wrote the book, and no shade, he's primarily an author and motivational speaker, but he's not a professional narrator. So his skill in that realm is a little bit less than a true blue performer or actor, which again isn't to disparage at all. It's just that's not his main thing. His main thing is something else. And yet, despite that, there is still a connection to the material. So it's kind of like the opposite of what I'm hearing with you. Right here, you're reading it really, really well, but the connection to the material is just a hair behind, or there's just like a hair's distance where I'm like, it sounds like, I don't know. I think I'm getting in the weeds a little bit here, but I'm being critical in that way because you're so darn close to nailing it that I want to push you in that direction.
Why do some connections flourish while others fade?
Yeah, like here, what connections in your experience are you thinking about? What made this question pop into your mind? So to do just a quick A-B comparison.
Why do some connections flourish while others fade?
Right now it sounds like, why do some connections flourish while others fade? But if I'm thinking of a specific connection, why do some connections flourish while others fade? So it's a very, very subtle difference, but I hope that maybe helps clarify it a little bit. Let's finish out the sample here.
And what could I offer in these pages to give every relationship we value a better chance of success?
Yeah, that section is a little bit closer to what I'm talking about and what I'm pushing you towards. You take a little bit more ownership here. What can I do to help? What was my goal here? So it becomes less abstract. And why do some relationships strengthen while others fade? And what can I do about it? So there's a really subtle shift there that happens, which I am excited by.
Building meaningful connections is where many of those answers begin. You won't find credentials behind my name, but what I do have is a deep love of learning, fueled by decades of reading, attending industry events, and spending over 30 years in sales, where relationships were everything.
Cool. I find that an interesting way to end this. That has nothing to do with you, Andrew. That's just, I think that that's an odd thing to say as the author in a way. I don't know why. Anyway, but all in all, my friend, really, really solid work here. And like I said, I'm being hypercritical because you're so darn close. So keep it up. I can't wait to hear what's next, my friend. For everybody else out there, I hope this was helpful for you. And until the next one of these, be well, and I'll see you there. Toodles.